So for this year, I thought I'd try and focus on, also because we're virtual, I'd try and focus on some of the more design aspects of it, in terms of like trying to design the extension, and I guess some of the considerations that I've been grappling with to do that. So this is a nice aerial view, I guess, of the original board, or the where the prototype is up to. So the original layout is basically the two sheds you can see on the aerial view, and then coming forwards from the front shed is where the extension will be. So let me move. Okay, so that's what the unextended layout looked like at Lydd Rail a few years back. So I started it as just a diorama, and it's kind of one of those projects that's grown out of all proportion now. It was just, I used to live in a flat, quite a small flat, and there was a bit of space in there. I had some aggregate wagons. I thought, what can I do to as a small sort of diorama micro layout? And so I started build this foam core baseboard, because I read somewhere online that was or in a magazine or something, that was a good thing. So, you know, nice. What's the question? Nice and lightweight, and actually, I mean, it's really fragile, to be honest. It's capped with quite thin ply from it's probably like 1 mil ply, maybe thinner, from 4D model shop. But even then, even with the ply, it's still pretty fragile. Yeah, I extended it to be a roundy in 2015. Like, I think Tim was just sort of starting out at that point, and so I got some of his. I guess one of the early customers for some of his baseboards. So what you can see there is the 6-foot scenic bit, and like the massive fiddle yard made from Tim's baseboards, and it was nice running it as a roundy, you know. You could have full length train, well, half length trains, should we say, running through it. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, I'll come on to the Y extend in a minute. But you know, you can see the kind of length of trains you can get in there, probably like 10 to 15 wagons long, basically, bogie wagons. I think that's Paul's PGAs in the background, so more of those. So yeah, I have exhibited it 3 times, just as a work in progress at Scale Forum in 2013, and then at Lydd Rail was 2017, and Broadstairs in 2018. There's some photos from those, and that's what the unextended layout looks like. The track plan for it. So it uses DCC. It's wired. It uses a lens system, and it's wired as 3 separate zones, or sort of circuit broken power districts, I suppose. Although there's only 1 6 amp supply to the whole thing. Potentially, I could wire different boosters in, but they're 3 separate DCC buses, if you like. So one for the departure roads, one for the arrival roads. So that's like basically the clockwise fiddle yard, the anti-clockwise fiddle yard, and then a separate section for the yard at the front. I put block detection in to a limited extent. I only ever did the departure and arrival road boards, fiddle yard boards, but it was enough to that you could have, basically, you could put it on automate and sit and watch the trains, and it would bring one train out of the fiddle yard round clockwise, and then select another one and then when it came back into the fiddle yard, select another one at random from a different road, and the same thing would happen on anti-clockwise. So quite a useful feature if you operators disappear off to the loo, and you just want to keep stuff moving whilst you're talking or something. You know, keeps a bit of stuff, keeps a bit of interest for the punter. Or maybe if you just don't like operating. So where is the real thing? So the bit I've circled is essentially where the layout is based, and you can see it's sort of dwarfed by the size of the hole in the ground, the quarry that it serves on the other side of the road that cuts down through the middle of the site. And it runs in a, for anyone who's been there, I suppose it's quite an interesting place because it runs in the bottom of a river next to a, well, I call it a river, but it's a small stream really called Fordbury Water, and the track bed runs alongside the small stream. And it's in a very wooded valley and quite tight. You know, there's not much space for the railway really, let alone the stream. So you know, the stream and the railway are sort of side by side, and then the sort of trees either side. I guess quite a sort of claustrophobic feel, but I'm not, the way I want to do that is obviously sort of strip back one side of the valley, so you're just looking in from one side, but I want the feel of like all of the trees at the background. So at some point I'm going to have to just make a lot of trees, which is a whole project sort of just in itself really. I've got a few trees on the layout, but nowhere near enough at the moment. So the period is that it's set in the 1980s, in the late 80s, when the facilities at Whatley were upgraded. So they greatly expanded the quarrying operation in the quarry, and it went from, I think it was like just a single track line up to Fordbury Water, and they put in about 4 different loops basically. You'll see the track plan in a minute. And they put in then the wagon repair depot, and then this sort of traction servicing shed around the same time. And then a year or two later, I think they must have ordered the 59s, which arrived on about 1991.
Very late 1990.
Very late 1990, yeah.
They only really got going with them kind of spring 91. They had to play with them for a bit, as you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. So yeah, anything else to say about the? Oh yeah, sort of on the reason why it's interesting, I guess, is it's on the cusp of going from sort of BR operated haulage to you know, the 59s. So can have quite a variety of different haulage was my thought, by setting it on that cusp of when it was transitioning. And I didn't have to weather things too much, which is always difficult. So the whole, if you think the layout looks quite clean, it's because it's set, I guess, early on when the facilities, you know, the track had just been laid and it wasn't all that dirty.
No, I was going to say I've been there myself on a rail tour, but it's literally all squashed in compared to Marehead, which is only about 20 miles away. Like Marehead's basically a full-size fiddle yard. It's that big. It's huge. Like all the reception sidings now. Whereas Whatley, as you say, literally squashed into what they had.
Yeah.
Rather than what, like, I'm sure they probably wouldn't have hacked down the mountains back then. They wouldn't now. But yeah, it's a lesson in full-size compact layout design. Never mind model. Yeah. Model-wise, so they had to work with the space they had, which sounds familiar to a lot of us.
Yeah, Marehead's a lot more open and expansive, isn't it? So there we go. So I have to thank Joe Older for. So Joe worked for quite a few years as a shunter at Whatley, quite recently, and he I think when he was there, one of his jobs was to sort of write like an operations manual for how to shunt the yard, and this. He shared that with me, which has been quite useful, because obviously this talk's all about operations, right? So I kind of want to get, if I'm going to extend it, I kind of want to get the operations correct. And this is what the full track plan looks like for the quarry. Well, for the reception and departure sidings, and then obviously the yard. So the quarry's off to the left under the road bridge, and that bit's not modelled. That's where the loaders are, and essentially there's just a few loops down the end. Yeah, for loading the wagons. But where all the action takes place, I guess, is really on this other side. And then at the other end, you've got Murdercombe Tunnel, and then that signal W285, I think, is the limit of the. I'm not a railway person, but that's the limit of the BR, where the BR turns into the quarry, I guess. But in terms of the operations, that seems to be the limiting point, where the shunter sort of has control everything to the left of that signal, and then that signal is onto the BR line that then goes off to Frome. So if you look at the track plan, then you've got departure roads at the top, and there's 2 of them, and this is in the real thing. This is how many wagons it can take. So 26 wagons in this departure road, and then 30 in the top one. So I guess if they combine it, they can get even more. There's this sort of ladder in the middle here then that splits them, and then you've got the reception roads are basically 3 and 4 here in the middle. And then the runaround is this loop down here at the bottom, and then you've got various sort of sidings for stabling wagons down here, and for gaining access to the wagon shed and the loco shed. And there's a cripple road here, and this is where the shunter's based, sort of halfway down. So I've tried to replicate this. I mean, even to get all of this in would require much more space than I have even for the extended layout. So what I've done, I've got an operational video. Let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at that next. This is not my video, but this is one off of the internet. But I think it's important to understand what a normal arriving train looks like. So it's 3 minutes. Am I sharing with sound or not at the moment?
Yes, yeah.
I am. All right.
Maybe turn the sound and YouTube down a bit.
Turn the sound down a bit. Okay, hang on. How's that? That's better? Yeah. So the loco, it's arrived in the arrival road. The loco comes off. And you can see the shunter, there's 2 shunters, I guess, there, who are waiting to change points and stuff. So the loco draws up next to the wagon shed, like that. He's clear, and he backs up. Now, meanwhile, while this is happening, a shunter has attached itself on the other end of the train. Well, the big switcher that they have there has attached itself at the other end of that rake of wagons, and is about to propel it back into the yard. Also, there's a 08 waiting with a small cut of wagons to add to the rake, just off to the right, down in the runaround. So the 59's heading off to the shed now, and you should, I think, in a minute. It's quite a lot of stuff moving. So you'll start to see the main rake of wagons being propelled. Yeah, they're moving now. So obviously in model form, it's quite important to be able to propel 20 or 30 wagons without any derailment. So I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my head as a target to aim for. So there's 3 trains moving now. Yeah, you've got the 08 coming in as well. So I think this, I think this will be quite interesting if I can sort of replicate this, having this amount of stuff going on. So I think we're about another minute of this video and then it finishes. Well, the sequence, the main bit of the sequence finishes.
The height of the switcher compared to the 08.
Yeah. 59's coming on there, and it all looks very cramped, the location. So at that point, the wagon rake has been cut, and the switcher's drawn back down the reception road to allow the 08 to come in, and insert 2 wagons into the middle of the rake, which it's doing now. And then the switcher will back on again, and then propel the whole lot into the quarry.
Is that switcher the one that Foster Yeoman bought over in the 80s, or is it a different one?
Another one.
There's another one, yeah. Go on, Ed.
It's a second one that's been around the world. I think it works in like Mexico, worked in South America somewhere, and then Hansen bought it. That's also the one that took an unexpected journey outside of the quarry one time with a brake failure. It basically didn't get it actually got through the road bridge, but that's the move a mess. If, we won't deviate too much. They're 2 separate switchers. It's like a lot of things. They saw what Yeoman adds here. We want some of that.
They're the same model, aren't they?
Yeah, SW1000.
Yeah. So that's it. I'm not going to, there are more wagons basically backing up now and being propelled. So, and I'm feeling a bit sick from all of the handheld camera work. He could have held it a bit steadier than that. But right, let's go back to the. So why extend it? So I think some people might have kindly commented, nice fiddle yard when I took it to various exhibitions, which I think is a fair comment, really. The fiddle yard to scenic ratio is imbalanced, and it needs a longer scenic section. At the moment, without it extended, most of the operations that you saw happening there are off scene. So it'd be much nicer if they were on scene and you could see that. And then can kind of only really run half length rakes, 10 to 12 wagons, and it'd be much nicer to run sort of 20, 25 wagon length rakes. So that's another reason for extending. And then just trying to work out how much of the of this track plan to include, because there's too much there to include in the space I've got. So what I've done is basically it's almost exactly like the track plan here, but I've omitted the ladder in the middle. So effectively I've made only a single arrival road and a single departure road, and then I've set it on a curve. So that's the track plan. So that should kind of, hopefully, most of it's on a curve, although it snakes a little bit, but it gives a feel of what it's like down there in the bottom of the valley. So I've merged the loops together, and it's compressed to about a third of the length from Murdercombe Tunnel to the road bridge at the other end. Okay, so the extension plan, basically go and buy 2 new boards from Tim Horn was the beginning of the plan. So those 2 new blue boards I bought from Tim, and repurpose the curve boards into scenic boards, and then move one of the curve boards that has got the fiddle yard approach round to this position. So these 2 fiddle yard boards, which just had straight track on them previously, the track will get taken up and then the straight track will just get laid on here. So it will end up looking something like this, with the 2 new boards being this straight fiddle yard board here, and then a new straight scenic board, and then 2 new, well, that's 2 repurposed curve boards that are then scenic, and then the tunnel forms a scenic break here. So we've got tunnel at either end, or tunnel at this end and road bridge at this end. So my original idea for sort of wiring this all up, based upon the way that I'd wired it previously, was, okay, well, again, we'll have 3 power districts. We'll have the departure sidings here as exactly as they were pre-extension. The arrival sidings will be over here, with it mostly on this new straight board that's going to get put in, but also this board was an existing one that's moved round. But actually, one of the problems with doing this is I also want to wire in the block detectors a bit more extensively than I've done before. And that means thinking a bit harder about how to do this. And I've spent quite a lot of time agonizing over how to wire it. But that's the final sort of block detection plan that I've come up with. So if I can zoom the... Hopefully you're not looking at this on too small a screen, but you can see the numbers here. And so essentially each one of these is a block. So like this one here, number 3, runs the length of that board basically. And then some of the other ones are broken up a bit. So we've got 11 here and 12 here. And this is really to be able to allow for automation, to allow the trains to drive themselves, be computer controlled. So that's the plan I'm wiring up to. And the thing you can see that the consideration when wiring it up is, because it's split into different boards, you don't want too much, because every block needs its own wire. Not both wires, but one of the wires has to go to every block from the block detector. So that means that you kind of want to locate the block detectors, the block detection units. You don't want to have them spread across too many boards. You kind of want them roughly close together, so you don't have to do too much wiring. So yeah, the plan is to have one block detection unit cover all of these this whole black section here, and then another one cover the red section here, another one cover this, and another one then cover this over here. So it's four physical block detection units I'll be wiring in, each one of which has got 16 blocks. Although I'm not making use of all of them in the case of the red one here at the front. I could take questions about block detection and layout automation at the end, maybe. So yeah, so for realistic operations, we're going to need to be able to propel fairly long rakes of wagons, and obviously the wagons, the real wagons are used knuckle couplers, so keddies are pretty much fine. They work well when propelling. They don't, they prevent sort of, there's not really buffer lock, which is good. You can see that
buffers.
Well, they don't really in between wagons, but on the locos I've got the keddies as well. So you don't want buffer lock between and out, and there are outer wagons as well. So you kind of don't want buffer lock on the outers either. So that's why I've fitted, the keddies are fitted at 2 different heights. On the inners, they're fitted at the prototype height, and then on the outers, they're fitted at the whatever the keddy height is, which is basically HO height, isn't it?
It's that did you measure it off the KD gauge, was it?
Yeah, they use the gauge then for the outers. And that's so you can shove them in NEM sockets and stuff like on the 60 there.
Yeah.
But if you've got those coupling at different heights, how are you going to deal with that operation with the shunter splitting the rake, pushing inners amongst them?
Yeah, good question. It will use a pair of outers. I'll cheat, basically. I'll cut the rake. The real rakes themselves have, a rake of 20 wagons or 22 wagons will have something like 6 or 8 outers all the way, like obviously one at each end, but then there'll be some interspersed in the rake as well. So the plan would be to have, to cut in 2 outer wagons into the middle and remove 2 outer wagons. So it's kind of cheating, I guess. And also because when they're mounted at the proper height, the prototype height, the magnets don't work anyway at that height. So the trip pins have been cut off. So they're not really separable. The thing that's going to be a bit tricky though is having the whole thing set on a curve. So I've got to be a bit sensible about where I put the uncoupling magnets. And I'm not sure whether to use permanent magnets at the moment or electromagnets. I saw what Phil did on Calcutta with electromagnets, and they seem to work very well. So I might try and have a go with electromagnets, because I have found with permanent magnets on old shore, stuff does occasionally come uncoupled where you don't want it to come uncoupled.
But
I would say avoid the KD zone electromagnets. They're bloody horrible.
Are they?
Yeah, they're very, very. Visually, they're very unattractive.
Yeah.
I find they don't work particularly well when we had them on our club American layout.
What did you use, Alan?
We used when we got the layout, it had the KD electromagnets built in.
Did you swap them for something better?
We are going to strip them out.
Right.
One solution I have seen is to use the permanent magnet on a sort of hinged plate, and then a servo to raise it into position when you want to uncouple.
That's not a bad idea. And with you can get. I mean, I've got some very small, sort of 1 millimeter diameter neodymiums, and they could just cut a 1 or 2 mil or 1.5 mil hole, raise it up in the hole, and that would work fine, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've used those tiny magnets on Dune Ray.
Yeah.
To work the KDs on that, and they're fine.
I think I'll have to do some experimenting, because I haven't put any magnets in at all yet, and I need to think about that.
Very sensible.
But you're not going for, you know the KD hand from the sky thing. It looks like a doorway. You're not going to use that, are you?
I'm not sure I know what you mean. But
no, it's basically like it's kind of shaped like an arch. You hold it down over the track and you press a button.
Oh, right.
There's magnets in it that'll extend, basically pull the Buckeyes apart. Like, I know the Americans don't like point motors. They have no problem reaching over and actually flicking the switch, as they call them. But it depends what you want, really. But no, the Americans have no problem doing manual shunting, even using hand uncouplers, like hand from the sky uncouplers. But it depends what you want, really, isn't it?
Pike stuff do a sort of not a hockey stick, a goalpost type arrangement. You put a magnet either side.
Yeah,
but it doesn't work because the buffers get in the way.
Right. I might have to make something. But you can always stick it. You can stick a cocktail stick or something in between them and twist. And that kind of opens them.
That's
as well.
fiddly, because if you're too heavy-handed, you risk bending the spring on the Buckeye. It won't have the same grip then when they come back together.
Right.
Yeah, kebab skewers are fairly good for that. But yeah, as Ed said, you've got to be very careful about around the springs.
Yeah. The thing is as well, like these trains you have are going to be heavy model-wise, never mind prototypically. So there will be a bit of a pull on them on the couplings as well. So, like as Mr. Wade will attest, if you go to a exhibition hall that isn't completely flat, you're going to have loads of fun with packing and spirit levels and all, and that can affect automatic couplings as well. That's the one advantage of having tension locks. They are a little bit more sympathetic to levels, but it's experimentation, guys. It's always the way to allow it. Like, there's always something you're going to have to rethink that, you know.
But it's an important consideration, I think, the coupling system for getting the operations to work well. And it's something I've been thinking about for years, and I haven't got the perfect answer, but I think this is a reasonable answer.
I was going to say it's pros and cons as well. Like, when I get to eventually operate, I'm going to throw to one of the operators here. You've the 9th wagon in that rake as a hot box. You're going to have to take it out and put it in the cripple road. How are you going to go about that?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So
there'll be an element of hand from the sky. I have experimented with DCC operated caddies. So the little ARC Sentinel that you see there has one fitted at one end, and that works reasonably well. In fact, the Zimo chip that's got in it has got a pre-programmed sequence to take care of DCC and coupling, so it does the whole little shunt forwards, uncouple, shunt backwards again. Shuffle, yeah. So it's kind of got that pre-programmed into it, which worked reasonably well. So yeah, I think though that it's going to be too fiddly to put that on everything. So better to have the permanent magnets or the electromagnets. And I've got.
I was going to say you won't have to. I mean, the shunters do the shunting, not the mainline locos.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm going to have to uncouple a mainline loco, so at least I'm going to have a permanent magnet where the mainline loco comes off, aren't I? And that's fortunately on a straight bit and not on a curve. So hopefully not, because uncoupling caddies on curves with magnets just doesn't work. So yeah, that's another consideration. Right. So here's the progress I've made then. I thought I'd just finish the presentation with a bit of progress to date, talk about what I'm doing on the extension, and then we can show you some stuff running for a few minutes, and then I've got a video we can finish with and at the end. So yeah, the track, all of the track is hand built in 00, which is ridiculous, but I chose to go down that route, and I've kind of dug my own hole now, so I'm going to keep digging it. It's made from, I'm using largely the exacta scale track bases for the concrete sleepered track, and then I'm using exacta scale components for the flat bottom track, and I'm using a mixture of exacta scale sleepers and Pico individuale for the flat bottom turnouts. So I drew up all of this. So actually there's a lot of flat bottom rail at Whatley. There's only a little bit of bullhead, because I guess because it was relayed in the 80s, they sort of came in and did quite a good job. But it is all track panels. It's all, 60-foot track panels. So yeah, I designed all of the track plan on Templot, which is a nightmare to use. And I did it the first time 10 years ago for the original section, and I'd forgotten in those 10 years what a nightmare Templot is. Kind of had to relearn it all again. But actually, it's improved a little bit, the software in that time. It's not that bad. You can kind of get something working. It took me about a day or two to relearn it. But it's not that intuitive if you've ever used it. So that's the track plan laid out on the floor at home, printed off. And then there's Tim's new boards. So I got him to make on these boards a rebate at the front. So you can see this like cutout. So that's going to be where the stream goes along the front, the Fordbury water. And at this point, I've still got the back seam on this original board. I hadn't cut it away yet, but I've now I've subsequently, taken power tools to that and removed it. And you can see that's just a track pan sitting on there. So one of the annoying bits was the amount of rework I had to do on the existing board. So there's a point that I didn't bother modeling because it's only half a point for the original layout, that I thought, well, it's actually key to the operations because it's that one that you see where the loco comes off in the video. So I had to model that one. So I built that all kind of on a block of oak, and then I cut it in such a, I put the track in such a way that it came apart in two pieces at the joints. So the V is on one board, and then the switch is on the other board, which I think is I hope is a sensible way to go. I can't really see another way of doing it, but by splitting it across the two boards. And you can see I've already weathered that. I've already painted it and weathered it, so I can hopefully blend in on the original board quite soon. Just need to reballast the area where the ballast got cut away. And then, yeah, that's, well, you'll see the layout in a minute, but that's kind of what it looks like now. I've got all of the track laid on this additional straight board, and I'm in the process of wiring that up. And I've gone sort of disappeared off down some rabbit holes, playing with servos, and I did a whole project trying to sort of make my own servo controller, a little bit inspired by what Martin's doing on the DMU forum, if you've seen some of his work, and you know, fascinating, like as an electronics project, but it meant that I made very little progress on the layout. And after about 2 or 3 months of this, I just gave up and bought some new Switch Pilot servos, which are really nice, and have meant that I sort of popped back out the rabbit hole, and I'm no longer distracted by electronics projects, and sort of trying to get back on track with the core projects of building the extension. And then the other little rabbit hole, which was not as deep as the servo rabbit hole, was the one for building a touchscreen control panel. So you can see that's just what's on screen there is I bought a 23-inch touchscreen monitor. Wasn't that expensive, I think £180. And that's rock rail running there with the track plan on it. And the intention is to have 2 of these monitors, one at either end, to be able to set routes and change points. So it works pretty well. The test one that I've got, that's a sort of test version of the track plan that you can see loaded up there. So that's how the panels will work. They'll be electronic. And then I've made all of these. These are the switch machines for the points that are servo based with a micro switch at one end of the throw. And that I think this is somebody else's design from one of the fine scale groups, but it uses a copper clad sleeper basically under the board, and the way that it's mounted is that there's another bit of copper clad as an underboard tie bar, and then you keep the 2 droppers, you solder 2 bits of brass tube on here, and you can lift the whole switch machine off then and swap them out. It's just quite handy. There's something like okay, so there's something like 50 or 60 turnouts now on the layout. So having the switch machines work reliably is really important, right? You don't want to be messing around at an exhibition with failed turnouts, and servos are a little bit fickle with this. They're not that good. I'd say tortoises are, you know, you pay your money, you take your choice. Tortoises are probably more reliable. But
have you used any of the cobalt ones yet?
I haven't. But yeah, Mick thinks they're good, doesn't he? He talks a lot about those.
He's not here to defend himself, so that's good.
So that's the end of the show. I'll show a little video and then I'll show you around the layout. So I did post this on the I posted it on the YouTube. This was one that I did for lid rail then. So it's going to look a lot better than having that blue wall at one end, I think, for the extension.
That migrants look better empty because you've done a really good job on the interiors.
I'll have to, yeah, I have to. I mean, they are going to need load though at some point, a lot of them, right?
But you're going to have wagons going one way loaded and the other way empty, so you need quick loads.
Yeah. I thought about putting magnets on the loads and having them lift out.
Would that interfere with the couplings if you're using cages?
I think it'll be local. I put a magnet on a stick and I put a metal plate in the middle of the load.
Right, okay,
so
yeah.
It's fairly.
Yeah. Sorry, but a stupid question, but you can see where I'm coming from there. So to be honest, I'd be interested to see if anyone gets the cages to work, because I'm sort of in the planning stage on a new layout of my own. So it'd be interesting to see how people get that going.
Yeah.
I mean, your wagons are probably so heavy it doesn't matter, but occasionally you can find with the fixed magnets, metal axles are drawn towards it, and your wagon rolls forward, slackens the coupling, and you get accidental uncoupling that way.
So another reason to go for electromagnets or the servo-operated idea that Alan suggested.
Yeah, I think your rakes are going to be so heavy. There's no likelihood of the magnets pulling, frankly. Yeah. So it's probably not to worry about.
But you need every single coupler to be reliable and not get bent or damaged.
Yeah.
Like the real thing, really.
Glass or stainless axles in some places to try and get around that, or doesn't it work very well?
It does
think
work.
The Americans do it.
Yeah, the Americans do it that way. In terms of reliability, I would say only buy KD. Don't buy any of the clones.
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me.
Still not quite finished. Needs more weathering. That's going to go really dirty.
I love the tuk-tuk wagons.
I've got to do more of those, John. I think it needs a double or triple, right? Rake of and put some of the. I'll get some of. I've got some of those Cavalex ones on order as well, which I think they're not quite right, but they did run mixed with them. The earlier version of the Barden hopper, is it?
Yeah, JGA.
JGA, yeah. So there we go. That's
getting flustered with the custard, I say.
Yeah.
Oh, Pete Waterman. Who's he now? I haven't heard him before.
Right, I'll stop sharing and I'll share the other. I'll put the other.
It's hard work. I'm not kidding you. 7 hours a day, keeping it
there he is
for the public.
That's all right, is it?
Right. I'll just attach the other. Okay, hang on a minute. We need the other that way. just trying to work out how I can get the. Sure, I had a go with this before. Switch to active speaker. No, gallery view. All right, that'll do, I guess. Then, okay, there we go. Right. So here's the new bit then. So yeah, this is the new board. And this is where the stream's going to be. I just need to the track bed comes out a little bit here, so the stream will sort of curve around the front here. If I was sensible, I'd have cut more in actually and had the stream come further in. I'm not quite sure. It's going to be it'll be a bit straight, but the stream will come back on the curve boards again, hopefully. I think it's quite nice. I have not really tried modelling water before, so I'm kind of looking forward to doing that. I guess I'll use probably resin for that. People seem to use resin for resin pours, so that'll be something to learn and potentially make a mistake, as all of this. So yeah, I had to slew this line here because I'd laid it straight, but actually it needs to be on a slight curve. So that I had to rip all of that up to get that in. And then that's the bit of the new point that sits across the board joint. So there's a view with a bit more, I put a bit more ARC stock on it after the Yeoman takeover. So that's the switcher that was there for a few years, which was class 25, but painted in this strange Great Western livery.
Didn't they rent it off a Preserve Railway nearby?
I think they did.
And they ended up burning it. It wasn't really up to the
Swindon and
challenge.
Cupcake Railway, wasn't that?
Yeah. Ultimately wasn't up to the challenge.
So anyway, I can make some stuff run.
Go on, make them crash. Go on, get a red card.
I'm going to put this here, but what I haven't got at the minute is the this road with the wagons on it is not powered up at the moment, so I'll just run a couple of locos in and out. DCC sound startup is really slow. Oh, come on.
Just stalled on the point there, did you?
No, I turned the sound off. Let's go to the.
Doesn't sound good over the Zoom anyway. Sounds like it's underwater.
Does it? Hang on, I might just run them without sound. I think it's too fiddly, isn't it?
Yeah, the tour-like features aren't essential, obviously. Nice, but not essential.
Now, there's the wagon in the background, Guy. You have to lobby the manufacturers to make now.
Yeah. All right, I can't run it any further than here because this is obviously not wired up.
Guy, now that it's got so much longer, what are you doing about the pelmet and lighting?
Good question. I'll have to build a much bigger lighting helmet.
Obviously, only for the scenic bit, though.
Yeah.
Will you try and do sort of one piece, or do you think you need to support it at midpoint?
I was kind of looking at what Phil was had been doing again. Not that I steal all my ideas from Phil, but he does seem to have some very good ideas. Yeah, I mean, it was hung basically from brackets that are on the come up from the back here. Come up from the back, and then they'll come forwards and drop down. So I'll need those brackets, sort of one at each end of these. Quite a few of them, and then obviously it's going to need the curve pelmet for where it goes off round on the two curve boards. So that feels like a bit of a nightmare. But I'll have to build a curve pelmet. Yeah, that's quite a way away at the minute. I'm thinking if I can just get the track laid now. A lot of it was just like working out the DCC wiring and how I wanted to wire it and where I want to put the block sections. There's a lot of thinking sort of went into that. But I think I've got a plan that will work now. So I've unblocked. I think I have to say thanks to Paul really for asking me to do this talk, because it's kind of chillied me along to try and solve that problem and move on. And I think I can just get down to business now and wire this up and then get the rest of the track laid. So I mean, at the minute, aiming for we're going to have a small exhibition, hopefully in London with a London area group in October. So I'm kind of hoping that if I've got the track laid by that point, then I can bring it along to that just to see how it runs. Be able to put it up in a church hall for a day. So yeah. Yeah, go on. Was that a question?
Yeah, how much more track have you got to lay?
Well, there's a two. I mean, I've got so the two curve boards need stripping of track.
Yeah.
And then I've got to cut a rebate in the front of them for the stream, and then lay the hand built track on those. And there's about another 4 or 5 turnouts to build for those.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it'll definitely take a bit of time to get that done. Yeah. But I think I'm going to focus on wiring this board first, so I can at least have 2 boards working. And then I'll move on. But I've got it's so far I've got the on this new board I have I'm using, let me see if I can zoom in on I'm using Collins tie bars. This is all a bit over the top for 00, but Collins nice etched tie bars here. They take a lot of fettling to sort of get those to work. And I've installed underneath the switch machines. So so that's how I don't know if you can see that. Let me just try and focus on that. So
that's clear. That's clear.
A little bit out of focus, isn't it? Come on focus. But that's one of the switch machines. So they're all wired in and working now. So that's good. It's just literally the power now that I need to wire in for this board, and then I can move on to the next board, start stripping them, get the straight track off them. There's a new straight board, so over here in the corner, I'll move over here. That's the fiddle yard ladder that goes in the middle of the fiddle yard, and then to pair up with that is that's not good. Behind it basically is a straight board ready to have track laid on it, so that's all kind of ready to go. So those two pair up. I'll quickly share the screen again on here. So the intention is to make so this board with a straight track on it, at the top, this the idea is that this can be either inserted in this position or it can be inserted to the left of the ladder, and that makes for much longer fiddle yard to accommodate the really long trains that I'm going to need. So I think, to be honest, most of the time I'll operate it as a single really long fiddle yard with that board moved into the position over here. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
It's trying to have a multi-purpose fiddle yard, you know, so that if I ever build another layout using the fiddle yard, I can have two equal size fiddle yards or one kind of long one. Or I guess I could just take the ladder board out altogether and put another straight one in there. They're kind of modular. So yeah, I will unpin. I think we're out of time, so I'll stop there.
Well, I don't see the next person online at the moment. So if you want to carry on with any questions.
Yeah. So, you know, it's Paul, I mean, anyone who's built a large layout that you take to exhibitions, you kind of got, there's a whole other sort of level of reliability that you kind of want to get to, isn't there? You know, with your layout with Tunbridge and stuff, you kind of want it to all.
Yeah, a lot of it's age problems that I get, but yeah, you try and do it as best you can initially.
Well, I was going to say the age of the owner, but no, you're right though. I mean, the wood ages. I mean, years ago we didn't have the likes of marine ply, so you had to use MDF and break your back and every bone in your body trying to move them. Didn't have Tim Horn making the nice layers of ones either. But no, it's the heat, the moving around the place, everything.
And I didn't choose a brilliant type of connector for between baseboards, etc. So using things like Phil used something more heavy duty would reduce his problems. So it's all that you think about. I'm sure you've been thinking about those sort of things.
Yeah,
it's common sense, and don't skimp when you don't need to, because it can improve the reliability.
I mean, what's part of me is like, well, what's 50 quid or 100 quid when you're making this when this is like a 10-year project, right?
Exactly. That's valid.
I mean,
that's why I was going to say the other thing to think about is too: is this going to be an exhibition layout or is it not? Because I think, given what's going on the last 18 months, there's not going to be as many exhibitions as there once was. Well, at least not for a year or two, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes some time to develop.
There's enough I mean, just to have the 4 scenic boards up will be quite good fun, right? Just even without the fiddle yard on it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you could be building a busy cityscape or something like that, or very scenic. Something. It's not really very scenic. Like, I've been there. Like, is that it? That's literally the first thing I thought when I saw the whole thing out the window. But yeah, no, it is what it is, guys. It's very impressive. So fair play.
You'll have to come and operate it, Ed.
Yeah, no bother.
Yeah, you need a big team, guy.
And you need a referee. There he is, right there. Need the gaffer.
I'm not great at managing staff,
You done all right.
You need a team which doesn't wander off as well, Guy.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's flaky Mike out then. Where is he? Is he on? No, he's not.
Shame.
He wandered off again.
Well, the ultimate test of time, I was one of Mr. Wade's trusted crew. There was